Society is waking up to all kinds of issues affecting women, but in hip-hop, something different is going on. Some of the hottest new artists are also facing troubling charges about women in their lives. The three of the hottest hip-hop artists out now: XXX Tentacion, Kodak Black, and Tekashi 6ix9ine. X is facing more than a dozen felony charges for allegedly beating and threatening his pregnant ex-girlfriend. Kodak Black was indicted for sexual assault, and Tekashi 6ix9ine pleaded guilty to sexual misconduct with a 13-year-old girl. The publicity around the case has seemed to fuel their rise up the Billboard music charts.
It's a combination of the PR machine latching on to the hype of that and people really being into the bad boy rebellious nature of these three artists.
Fortunately, violence against women is nothing new in the music industry. Eminem's controversial song with Rihanna drew heavy criticism for its mixed messages about domestic violence. On the R&B side, no amount of musical genius could keep some R. Kelly fans from defecting after disturbing allegations about a 14-year-old girl. But none of that compares to the influence of the new rappers, says Dr. Randy Sconyers.
If they think some of these behaviors are okay, or they're not being criticized for those actions, then there could be a lot of mimicking that could go on because of the mindset that those kids are taking on.
This all comes at a time when women artists are thriving. Cardi B has a mega hot new album, Remy Ma is showing female artists can be married with children, and Nicki Minaj continues to crank out the hits. Despite the advances, Dream Doll, whose latest single is Everything Nice, says it's still a challenge for up-and-coming female artists to be taken seriously in the male-dominated industry.
I feel like sometimes, guys try to get over, especially when they have something that you want, like their vocals or their beat, or you really want to work with this producer. I feel like they use that over you a lot of times, I feel like they take advantage.
Well, it's never been a better time to be a female artist. They still face challenges on and off the stage. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me is Dylan Green. He's a music journalist and also writer for DJBooth.net. Dylan, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Also with us is Dream Doll. She's a hip-hop and pop artist. You've probably seen her as the star on Love and Hip Hop New York. Her latest single is Everything Nice. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Also with us is Dr. Randy Sconyers. He's the director and owner of New Steps Counseling. He's the founder of Mental Hop. That's a program that uses hip-hop therapeutically. He also counsels many teens. Dr. Randy, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me start with you on this. How big an influence do these artists have on the youth?
I think they have a major influence. You can see as the market continues to show that hip-hop is the #1 genre of music, so the kids are really listening to what's going on, and they're seeing everything on social media. So what I think is when they see these artists get in trouble and have difficulties with the law, depending on the messages that they're getting from other areas, it could be a major influence on them if they don't have people at home or mentors or people in their lives to kind of challenge those negative images.
And Dylan, some people, when we say XXX Tentacion, they may not be like, who is that guy? He hasn't been all over TV, he hasn't been all over the radio, but he's hugely popular, top of the Billboard chart. How big a star is he in terms of the music landscape right now?
He's a pretty significant star. His recent debut album just came in at #1 on the Billboard charts. So he's reaching kids in a very real way through streaming, and considering all the charges that he has against him, it's really scary stuff.
But the influence is very powerful.
The influence is huge, yeah.
Definitely. Dream Doll, as a woman in the music industry, and everybody please feel free to jump into, how do you feel the climate is now? Because we've seen a lot of other industries like television, like film, where if somebody's accused of any type of misconduct or sexual abuse or assault or domestic violence, they're basically shut out. Their shows are canceled, or they're taken off the show, or they're just, their bookings go way down. What's the climate like for you as a woman in the music industry right now?
Well, a woman like me in the music industry, I feel as if, yes, women are being taken advantage of and disrespected. Me personally, I had situations where producers or even they'll try stuff or I guess have less respect for me because I am a woman, not take me as serious, or try to come on to me just for a beat or something like that. But I don't care what type of beat you have, how far it is, I don't care. But it just goes back to like the Me Too movement, you know, where the directors was taking advantage of women in Hollywood, you know. So it's like it happens everywhere. Whether you work in a grocery store, I would bartend in the strip club, so I watched it happen. There's no HR there, so it's like it's either you want your job or it don't. So
right, exactly.
It's messed up and it's happening everywhere.
How do you see this play out in terms of the teens?
Well, hip hop is the most authentic music, right? So when you see hip hop reflects what's going on in society. So the things that Dream talked about it's not anything new, but with hip hop, you get it magnified even more so because people love their artists so much and they really feel that connection with their artists. So what I see with the young people is that there's sort of like this disconnect. They're not sure how to take what's going on in terms of how to treat our females, and that's kind of concerning because on one hand, these big songs are liked by a lot of the females as well, and a lot of the misogynistic lyrics in the music, you see females, you know, buying it and streaming it just as much as the guys. So I think our young people are not really sure, and it's confusing to them.
Dylan, you wrote about this for DJBooth.net, this whole phenomena, and also for, you know, men like yourself who are conscious and they're, you know, good guys, basically. It kind of presents a dilemma because you're like, I like the music and the music's hot, the beat's crazy, but is there a sense of like, should I really be patronizing this person and supporting his career?
Yeah, absolutely. It gets very difficult to I've always had a really hard time separating the artist from art when it comes to this. Like I wrote in the article, like sexual assault and things like that are kind of where I draw the line a lot of times, and it can be nerve-wracking to just realize how you might be patronizing someone based off of something really terrible that they did.
I'm all against, you know, domestic violence and you know, just tormenting women, period. So it's just like, I feel as if even being a public figure, any little thing you do as an artist or a public figure, you know, you're accountable for your actions.
Right.
Regardless what it is. If you kick a fan, you're responsible for it. You know, it's just your life is on a platform. And you know, that whole domestic violence thing is just it's just crazy. We're going to take a short break and we're going to continue talking about this. This is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be back right after this. Because that's what I used to do. I used to cover up my black eyes with makeup, go to work, cover, like, you know, cover it up.
Girl, the pretty girl,
and go back home to the miserable home.
What about all the B words, all the H words, all the things about I'm going to do this to you, all that? Randy, does that have an effect?
Yeah, well, I just had a conversation with a group of teens yesterday, and we talked about this topic, and I think that it was kind of scary to hear that, you know, what the opposite of what Dream Doll was saying is that these kids were saying sort of like, well, we see young ladies kind of bumping their heads to it, and they're buying the music, and so how bad can it be? You know, so it was important for me to kind of challenge that and also remind them, sort of like what Dream Doll is saying, that at the end of the day, this does not give you permission or consent to therefore treat a young person in that way. So I think we have to have these conversations with them at a very early age so they can understand in terms of what the empowerment that women have at the end of the day. This does not give you the right.
But I think it's like other words, if the women use it herself, like, oh, that's my B or whatever.
I could call myself a B, but you can't call myself a B. You understand?
Exactly.
Like, I call myself that
Absolutely.
B, but you can't call me like that. I'm like, that's like, it's like two different vibes.
Right,
like
exactly. Two different senses
ways.
Of the way.
That's like,
two different ways you say it.
That B over there, then I'd be like, I'm that B. That's just two different ways of, you know, saying it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the young teens, they know the difference, right? I think we have to give them credit as well. I mean, they understand this is art. This is not necessarily art in life in terms of there's a separation of the two. And I think our kids, a lot of them know that. I can't say all of them, but it depends. Each kid is, you know, individually, you have to look at them differently too.
That goes with their parents, man.
Yeah.
Dylan, what do you think about that? But also too, the lyrics though, I'll say this, yes, it definitely comes down to the parents. But the fact of the matter is a lot of these songs, they used, we did some research into it and did a story on it and a show on it, in fact. There's a hypnotic level to the way to certain beats, some of the biggest beats that stays in your, that stays in your head and that you repeat over and over again. So Dylan, do you think if you're repeating this over and over again, that it's going to have some effect on how you look at women?
Honestly, I could say yeah.
For a kid.
Yeah, honestly, but but once again, I definitely agree with I definitely agree with what the rest of the panel is saying about how it's really on the parents to really discern what those words mean and to let and to have children understand that they're if you can help it, try not to use these words, but this is what this means this is what this word means as a man, or either as a boy or as a man saying this word, as opposed to what this means to say I'm saying it as a woman, because there's definitely a difference there and it should absolutely be acknowledged.
Also, I still don't curse in front of my mother. And I'm a 92 baby. I don't curse in front of my mother. Also, when my mom come to my shows and I apologize to my mother on the mic, my mom's here. Or I'll be like,
it's about respect, right?
It's about respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was raised in a household where my mother wasn't having to disrespect the curses, and I was disciplined. So that goes to,
how you were raised, and it goes to the parents.
Exactly.
Absolutely,
that's why I know how.
But not everybody goes through that situation, and some kids are going back and forth between.
Yeah, I have some of my friends that call their mom the B word or some disrespect their mother.
Me? Fight
their
I
mother.
can't even imagine.
No, serious.
Whoa.
That goes on. I watch it happen all the time, and it happens everywhere. And I just. I'm thankful because, my mother disciplined me to the woman I am now. Enough is enough. And, just bossing up and putting your foot down and having enough with it.
To come back to XXX, he donated a couple $100,000 to Parkland, to the to one of the students that used his body as a human shield to save some of his fellow students. And so I don't know if that was the manager saying to him,
for me,
or is that just jumping on the March for Our Lives bandwagon?
Honestly,
100%, 1,000.
It feels a million. It feels like he's hopping on the bandwagon because you have this happening, but at the same time, that video of him punching that girl in the head came out for no reason.
Right.
So a
new video.
Yeah, and also to me personally, the things that he did were so heinous and so bad that tossing $100,000 to an organization is it's not an end all be all for every single. Yeah, it's not an end all be all for every situation. There's really degrees to that stuff.
Giving $100,000 to the anti-gun violence movement is not equivalent to punching your pregnant ex-girlfriend, beating her up, strangling her.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no.
You can't buy your forgiveness or buy the forgiveness of the public
or clean it up.
That situation is crazy. I don't have nothing to say about that because I've been through my own domestic violence situations. But I could speak on behalf.
But do you feel that we treat those situations seriously enough?
Of course. To the highest extent that you can take it, he should be held accountable for his actions. But I also have to say, once again, being a public figure, I'll do stuff like for example, I donated turkeys to my whole, where I grew up at. I donated turkeys to everyone on my block. And it's everyone judges me for my actions on the Bad Girls Club. That it's hey, but she did this. But it's television.
Right.
It's television. Let's get this clear. It's television. Stop judging people off TV.
Exactly.
And and it's just anything good I do, they will always want to throw the bad on top of it. Oh, but she did this, but she did that. So I could speak from both point of views, but I don't agree with any guy or any that whole domestic violence thing, and and. It's just he's so powerful.
But what does it feel like as a survivor, though, when you hear these stories and people make excuses for it? When there's evidence, when there's evidence and it's pretty clear what happened.
Well, me personally, I was in a domestic violence relationship, and no matter what, they just my ex thought that he was some saint. They would be no, he would never do that. And it's he would never do that. Here's the picture of my two black eyes.
Right.
I done wrote songs about him and everything. It's it's they almost don't believe it until I be look what he did to me. And I understand where the the victim actually is coming from, because it's she doesn't have a voice really as big as him. So I could see his fans, you know, like swarming her and be like, oh, calling her out her name and you know, making her feel like as worse than she already feels because he's so powerful.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a society.
Re-victimizing her.
Yeah.
Right, when it's like, you know, I like, you know, that is not cool, and they're gonna keep doing it until they faced with the facts, they're faced with the, you know, the charges, they learn their lesson, they deal with the crime. But even that, it all has to do with the way you was raised, because my ex-boyfriend used to hit on his mom. His mom used to hit on his dad. Like, you know what I'm saying? His dad used to hit on his mom. Okay.
Right, so it was a repeating pattern.
So it's a repeating pattern. So he watched that. So it's like, you watch that happen.
It was ingrained in him.
Yeah, and then now it's like, you did that to me. And then you did that to your ex-girlfriend. And now you're going to keep doing this every girl. Because you've never been, like,
taught and educated, right?
And you never dealt with the consequences. You ain't go to jail and get your behind beat in jail. And no, I don't ever want to put my hands on a woman. When your face all over the news saying that you beat this woman and stuff like that, because if he go to jail, I'm quite sure they're gonna take care of him.
So you're saying bottom line is, as a society overall,
I think so.
Hip hop and everybody, we need to do a lot more in terms of leveling the playing field between the victims and survivors.
Absolutely.
Of course.
And the people that
and
are,
I feel like she should have her voice.
Yeah, like
it's a power struggle, right? And it's just, in society, that's the problem we're having already in terms of like the powerlessness that we and the voicelessness of women, right?
True.
So we need more, you know, we need to kind of
women
give
are
them
speaking out, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
And it's
for
more
sure.
quiet people. Like, it's more quiet people like,
and
man,
also
I've been
more,
through that.
and more men
they don't
speaking
talk.
out too. So when I have these conversations with our young men, I'm challenging those thoughts. When our men speak up, our young kings and our young queens speak up together, we can make a change, and we try to get to them.
I never spoke up about this, so it's like, I hope that, you know, young women out there that are going through situations where they're keeping quiet about domestic violence or, you know, just any type of, you know, violence, period, whether it's mental, physical, any type of abuse is not okay, you know? Exactly. And I hope that women could speak up about this too, that have been through it, because it's easy to be the silent victim and act perfect. Because that's what I used to do. I used to cover up my black eyes with makeup, go to work, cover, like, you know, cover it up.
Be the pretty girl,
and go back home to the miserable home and the person that was doing that to me, you know? So it's all about having enough, putting your foot down and being like, enough is enough. And, you know, just bossing up and putting your foot down and having enough with it, you know?
One last thing, Dreamdoll, what advice do you have for the girls and women that are watching this right now that might be in a situation where they know they're being taken advantage of, but they're afraid to talk to somebody?
I would say to the young women that are scared to talk to somebody, you can always hit me up. I'm always in my DMs. I'm always here for advice, whether it's you've been body shamed, you feel insecure about your body, because I had insecurities. That's why I had my choices. But, you know, I'm always in air. And also, I feel like, you know, just know your worth, know you deserve better, and no matter how the situation is, whether you feel like you need that person, you can't live without that person, it's always a light. You know, believe in God, put God first, and there's going to be a better path for you.
And there is something better for you out there. Okay, we're going to end on that note.
Exactly.
I want to thank all of you for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Dylan Green, great to have you.
Thank you so much.
Dreamdoll, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your story with us. I know I meant a lot.
I was a victim for a long. I was like a silent victim, you know. So I just never wanted to talk about it because it's like it got to do with people judging me all the time, like they ain't like, you know. But I had to speak about it one day because if I don't, then I guess
it could happen to somebody else.
It's happening to other people.
I appreciate your bravery in speaking out, and I appreciate your honesty in sharing that story with us, because I'm sure it's helping people right now. So thank you very much, Dreamdoll, for being on Street Soldiers. And Dr. Randy, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.